One of the color images I was able to work on was the death of Amethyst. This not only included the image of Amethyst, this huge, just massive dragon god, but I also had the opportunity to illustrate Gebermonk, the demon armor. And the trickiest part of the whole thing was showing the size difference between the dragon and Gebermonk, but at the same time um, trying to feature both as the main elements in the illustration. But it was a lot of fun to work on, and it just came out um, pretty dynamic, I think.
When I mentioned to Nick that Gebermac was described as having 1,000 plates on his armor, uh, I can only imagine the dread that washed over his face, and I realized the implications of that. I'm like, wait a second, 1,000 plates bolted and screwed and sliding and moving over across each other and so forth. And it's probably just realized that I was like, and then he came back with the first drawing, and I said, more plates, more pieces, more. It's got to be the busiest suit of armor. It has to be nearly impossible. And the fact that the only reason why it works is because of the fact that it is just bound together by dark energy, and it could not function in any other way. And there was a bit of a homage to a moment that reminds me of Peter Jackson making of Return of the King, referring to how big you should make the bad guy's weapon. And this is a reference to the size of the Witch King's mace. And as he's drawing this sword, it's called Dogarasu, which is the name of that sword, I kept on saying that it's got to be bigger, got to be bigger. Finally, he's making it larger and larger. I said, you're about 50% there. And he drew it just this ridiculously long length. And I was like, yeah, that's good. Leave it there. We went through, I'd say, a dozen variations of the helmet, from bug eye to a more traditional helmet. And I said I needed to be a head that a human head could not fit in. There's something you don't know, you don't want to know, you're not entirely sure if you can know what is actually inside, what could fit, if something is in fact inside of it. And we went through a lot of variations of this type of semi-bug head, and he had a crown of knives, which was another element that was described. He is this singular, most powerful opponent in the setting.
The demon or the Shimyaza race were also a lot of fun to work on. The original image I did was of the male, and it was done in black and white. He's standing next to a grotesquerie, which is just a disgusting creature. I wasn't given very much information on what the grotesquerie was supposed to look like, because they just come in such a wide variety of forms. But I really liked designing the clothing of the male demon, being completely covered in leather armor from the neck down. And while I was concepting the male, I envisioned some of the armor just being entirely comprised of straps. While some larger pieces of leather offered a little more protection. Um, Although from their description, the Shimyaza really don't need a whole lot of protection. The design of the head and face took a few changes to get to work right, but overall I think we came up with a really nice representation. The female Shimyaza, which is being used for the cover, was another color image I worked on. And that is the one exception to the scantily clad females rule. Um, the female demons, have their curves exposed to use those attributes to net them advantages in whatever situations they find themselves in. So, but the lack of expression on the demons' faces is a common trait of the race, and so is the scarring, which is often self-inflicted. And on the opposite end of the good versus evil spectrum, the paladin image. In this image, There's a bright and shining paladin, the white knight, if you will, battles a swarm of Pagus soldiers. And even though the Pagus wave seems to be really just overwhelming, uh, there doesn't really seem to be a feeling that the paladin is going down anytime soon. But that was just the contrast in that image is something that I really enjoyed portraying.
This is my favorite image. One of my favorite images. Once again, I can't really play favorites too much. Which was a Tekken image, which started this strange trend unknowingly that whenever Nick would draw an image of Tekkens, they were always getting their butt kicked in some way. They were always losing in some fashion. Either they were getting ambushed by a Pegasus or what have you. But for some reason, Tekkens are always on the losing side of every conflict. But this image, I think, is just it's so. I hate to say realistic, despite the fact that there's a vapor cannon and being held by a guy in power armor in the background. It's the fact that if you look at the texture on the hand of the medic, the fist of the guy in pain, his scream, right? There's just an utter believability of the whole thing. It looks like someone just sat down and drew something that was actually occurring. There's just a realistic edge to this, which I've always enjoyed. And this is probably one of my all-time favorites. I think that if Amethyst ever got turned into a feature film, this is the one image that only an insane man would want to change for the big screen. If you ever design Max, it has to look like this. It just has to look like it. It has to have this gigantic presence with this strange little head and this huge weapon assembly on his arm. One of my all-time favorite images, with the spotlight on his one shoulder. It's just I really love it, and the atmosphere, the fact that you can't even see for certain how large it is. It's actually, as I said, it's there. The one thing that Nick and I do have in common is our absolute dedication to the quality of the product, and that's the reason why we've constantly tried to push each other for the highest quality. And like I said, it's been a fantastic experience working with him on this, and it forces us to raise the bar to make sure that the writing and the mechanics of the game live up to the artwork, because more than any other project I've ever worked on, projects that I've seen, other books that I've read, the artwork is really a definitive, consistent presence. You always see the artwork; it's always there. The 3.5 book was highly praised for its artwork. It wasn't in color; it was black and white, and no one seemed to care. People enjoyed the fact that it was presenting this extremely detailed setting, and there was a consistency of the artwork. It was all done by one person, the majority. There were a few pieces done by a few other artists, and as a result, everything had a consistent feel. And I think that's really important. You don't see that very often. Most of the time when you see artwork in several of these role-playing games, they can be good, they can be fantastic, but sometimes they can be a little off in tone, where you see one thing and you see somebody else's depiction of the same thing, and it's just perhaps slightly off. And I really enjoyed seeing this artwork, and whenever we get new artwork, I would sometimes just giggle, because it's just such a fantastic piece of artwork. And this is just the beginning. We hope to continue to present these games with this level of quality. I mean, even the border. If you look very close to the border, you can see the detail. I mean, this is only 3 inches tall on the corner side, and yet there it is. This exquisite detail just in our border. I mean, that's the level of quality we're talking about. So, like I said, Amethyst comes out in the spring, and we'll probably have a couple more of these video podcasts talking about the various backgrounds, probably showing a few more pieces of artwork. And so, from Deus Ex Machina, this is Chris, wishing all of you a a pleasant evening, afternoon, or morning.
Overall, the overall experience that I've had working with everybody from DSX Machina on the Amethyst project has just been it's just been a great ride, and I'm really looking forward to what the future holds for Amethyst.